Hi everyone, it's been a while since I've recorded any videos on Flutter, so I thought to put out a video that I feel very strongly about, and that is CRUD storage in mobile applications. As you may know, CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. And these are some of the primary things you may want to do with data inside your applications, or even when you're working with backend. You're going to have, like if you're creating a Django REST framework application to return some JSON data to your consumers, whether they're Flutter applications, native iOS or Android, or if they're React Native applications, then you're probably going to work with CRUD as well, in that on the backend you're going to create some objects, or you're going to read, delete, or update, or maybe all of these in the same application usually. So I thought that in this video we start looking at how we implement CRUD in Flutter without any backend at the moment, and we look at how we can use SQLite to store our data and manipulate the data in a SQLite database. Now, you have to excuse me because I have a new Mac here and I've pretty much just set up things yesterday, so I may not have all the software necessary to get everything going, but let's just give it a go. If I make any mistakes, you're going to see that any developer makes mistakes, so I hope that is okay with everyone. So the goal of this application that we're going to create is to do something as I will show you now. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see. So this is a typical CRUD application. As you can see here, that there are items in a database that we're reading and displaying inside a list. The items are displayed as tiles, and they each have a delete button and then the ability for you to tap on any item to update its properties. Now, the reading of these items and displaying them on the screen is the R part of CRUD, and that is read. And if you write anything in here, for instance, if you say Baz last name, and then you say add to list, then that is the C part of CRUD. That is the creation of your CRUD operations. And if you tap on this close button and you say delete, that is the last bit of CRUD, which is deletion. And if you, for instance, want to change foo bar to foo Baz and save, you can see that the list got updated without any flickering or anything, and that is the U part of CRUD. So we're going to take care of all of these in this video example. We're going to have a look at how we use streams, stream controllers, SQLite databases, lists, custom widgets. So there's a lot of good things happening in this application. I think is a good base for anyone trying to get into Flutter development, just to look at how we are going to develop this application. So I have some notes prepared, which is basically the how I think this application should be developed. So from time to time, I'll have to look at my notes because there's a lot of moving parts in this application. So you'll have to excuse me if I have to look at some notes before I progress to the next step. And the UI of the application may not end up being exactly like this. We may have to adjust some things, or if we find a better solution to how it should look like, we will do it as we go along. But it's going to be about this that you're seeing on the screen. So let's just get started. Then I'm going to bring up a terminal, and I'm going to go to projects and Flutter. And let's create a new project. Let's say CRUD example, okay? Okay, let's go to Flutter. Let's go to our CRUD example, and I'm going to say code. This is an M1 machine, so it's not an Intel processor, and I've had some problems with Cocoa pods. So recently I had to use Bundler to get the pods basically working, and I'm not sure if it's going to work on this in this example, but we could just give it a try and see. I can close this terminal because there's an integrated terminal inside Visual Studio Code, which you can bring up with control backtick on Windows or command backtick on actually it's control backtick, I think, in Mac as well, and it may be the same shortcut, but you can otherwise go to terminal and just say new terminal, and it will create a terminal for you. But now I have duplicates and I can remove this one, which I don't need. So now what I'd like to do is to Command Shift P and then Flutter select device, and I'm just going to say iPhone 13, which is my simulator in this case. Let me bring the simulator up here so you can see it also next to our project. And I'm going to increase the size of my editor a little bit so that you can see the code a bit easier. I hope so. And I'm going to say Command P and then say main.dart. So this is the code that Visual Studio, or how do I say, the Flutter command line tools create for you. So what I'd like to usually do is to bring all of this material app inside the run app. So I like to do like this and say, here's a material app. And actually we can bring it as it is. If we remove the comments from here, and I'm going to remove the sidebar from here. Let's grab the material app from here, and then we can pretty much delete all of these. So delete all of that and just say material app. And since we don't have yet my home page, let's go and delete this as well. Then on top here, I'm going to say STL, which is a stateless. And because our home page is going to be a stateless widget. And you may be wondering how we're going to achieve that, since in this example, you saw that there's lots of moving parts and data being changed. But the truth of the matter is that this data is going to be controlled by a class, which in itself is immutable. So this widget in itself doesn't really have to be a stateful widget. So let's write STL in Visual Studio Code, and I think Android Studio may also support this, to be honest with you. I'm not sure about it, but in Visual Studio Code, at least you say STL for stateless widget. And I'm just going to say home page. Let's go in here and just say home page, okay? So prefer const over. We didn't write const anywhere though. With const constructor. Okay, we'll just say const here then. All right, let's just see if we can run this as it is, or if I have to go and change something in the pods. We will find out soon. Now it's just a waiting game to get the first build running. And as soon as we get the first build running, that's the one that takes the most time. So after that is going to be hopefully a lot easier and faster. And I can see that the build actually went fine. So we could connect to the application, and it's just a black container at the moment. And that's because we've just written container here, and that's fine. So let's get some life into this application. I'm just going to bring my notes up here as well. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's now say, I don't want a profile list, so not sure how to stop the profiling. I clicked on it by mistake. So in here, I'm just for now gonna create a scaffold, and for the app bar, I'm gonna say app bar. For the title, I'm gonna say it's a text CRUD example. Okay. And here, this seems to be a new thing that I have to prefer. I have to write const like this and like this. All right, so we got a simple app bar up there, and there is nothing happening in the application right now, so that's kind of expected. Now, what we want to do is, if you look at the example that we had here, every person that is, these are person objects, and every person has 3 properties. The first one is an ID, which is going to be the primary key of that person in the database, and then there's a first name and a last name. And a person, for us to be able to, for instance, create ability to delete a person from the list, we need to make sure that they're comparable to each other. And also, if you add a new item in here, you say, for instance, a test, I can't type, test name, and then we say test last name. I can see I misspelled name here again, and I say add to list. You can see that every item appears on top. So these, not only are they comparable, not only they're equitable in that they can be deleted from a list using an equation sign that we're going to implement later, but they're also comparable in that we can sort them using a special algorithm, which is it's only being sorted by their IDs at the moment. So the newest item appears on the top of the list. So keep that in mind. So we have a person class that we're going to develop with 3 properties. We can actually get started with that immediately. So let's just say class person. Oh, sorry about that. I'm a bit slow today. What properties did we say? Final int ID. Then we say final string first name. And then we have a final string last name. And what I really like to do here is, also, by the way, before I say what I like to do here is, a lot of people ask me what this is, why I can see the errors here in line, and that's because I have an extension called Aero Lens, and you can actually get it from the marketplace. It's called Aero Lens. It's right here, actually, here. And this allows you to see all your errors in line, so you don't have to like tap on an error sign or anything to see the errors. It's good and bad because it's good because I can see all the errors immediately here, but also if you're working with a widget that you return, for instance, if you're working with a function that has a return value and you're writing a lot of code in there and you haven't even calculated the return value, so you don't know what you're going to be returning, then the whole function could be highlighted as having an error because it's not returning anything, and this error could actually get in the way of you focusing on your code. So I would suggest using Aero Lens until you get pissed off with it or angry at why it's all over the place. Then you can disable it, but I personally prefer to have it enabled all the time. So what I like to do, let's go back to what I like to do, is in Visual Studio Code when I get all these errors and when I'm creating constructors, is just to do command dot on Mac and control dot in Windows to create a constructor. And since these fields are all final, I can just say this is a const. Okay, so what I also said we need to do is to make sure that this is a comparable object so that we can sort it. What we want is for this sorting to happen in a reverse chronological order, and so we can actually go and do that right now. So let's go. I have to look at a little bit of my notes. First, we need to extend comparable, and then you have to create a function here. So I can just do command dot again, and that creates the overwrite for me. Now, if I want this. And here, the other can actually be a covariant of person because we're sure that the other object's also going to be a person. What I like to do in this case is to, if you think about it, if you want the order of the list to be chronological in that the IDs appear in order of creation, like 0 on top, 1 after that, and 2, 3, then you would simply do, for instance, ID compared to other ID. This is chronological. But if you want to make it reverse chronological, in that the last ID or the greater ID appears on top of the list, then you actually do other, I can't type, compared to this ID. So that's for the compare to. Oh, how come? Covariant, other can't call a non-constant superconstructor. Constructor in the superclass. Overwrite int comparable covariant other. Is it Dart just being a little bit angry, or is it because we have to implement equitable as well? So let's do that. Let's go ahead and say we are overriding at override, and then we say bool operator equal like this, and then we say covariant person other like this. And the equality of two persons is very important how we actually implement this, because maybe there's going to be two people with the same exact first name and last name entered here, but we cannot base the equality of the people based on their names, because imagine that there were 2 foo bars or foo bases in this list, or 3 or 4. If we built the equality based on their first name and last name, if I tap on foo baz and actually said delete, then all those foo bazes are going to be deleted from the database. So that's not what we want. What we want to do is just to assume that ID is the primary key in the database. You may even call it PK as Django does, or some other frameworks do, but I've decided to use ID. So let's just say ID is the primary key and two person objects are equal to each other as long as the ID is the same. So let's just say ID is equal to other ID. Okay, I'm not sure why we're getting that error, to be honest with you. If I remove const, weird. So that's that. And then what we also have to do is to override hashcode if overwriting. Okay, so let's override hashcode as well. Oh, I see. That's because I'm extending comparable. I have to actually implement. I apologize. Implements. We're actually implementing comparable, not extending it. So that's our bool operator equal. Let's create the hashcode. For the hashcode, we're gonna say it's the ID's hashcode. Okay. So that's that. Also, we're going to be printing, just as a part of like debugging our application, we're going to be printing instances of this person, maybe. So it's also a good thing to do to override the toString method. So I think actually we can write toString, and Visual Studio Code helps with that. Yeah. And in this case, we're just going to say person ID equal to $ID. First name is $first name, and last name, let's just do this one as well, first name with capital N, last name $last name. Okay, so that's our person class. So we have a good base here it's performing hot reload, and I have to go to the application for the hot reload to work. So no errors so far. It's working as expected. I mean, we haven't done anything special. It's just the base class, but it's an important class. It's one of the most important classes basically in this application. So now what we need to do is to look at how we can create instances of this person class. And what we could do is just to go here and then let's make these named parameters, and I'm going to make them all required because they are required. Don't worry about the formatting. The dark formatter is going to help us with that. And I really like to place a little comma at the end of the last parameter so that when I press Command S, it's going to be formatted correctly. If you don't do that, then it's going to just be on one big line, and I prefer it like this, but it's just a preference. So good. Now let's have a look at how we can actually create a database and put these objects inside that database. All right. So to do that, you need to know a little bit about SQLite databases, and there's a lot of material online that you can grab and have a look at. But so I'm not going to go into the exact details of how to create a SQL database as such, just to test with. You could do that. But what we're going to do here, I'm just going to bring up something called DB Browser for SQLite, and you can actually grab this for free from their website. It's a program that is natively running here on this Mac. So I'm just going to show you how we create a database here, SQLite database, and how the format of that, the creation of the person's table is going to look like. We could maybe just call it people actually. So let's go in here and call this, I can't even see the box on top. That's unfortunate. Why? Oh, here. Let's call it people. Okay. And we're going to use it as a SQLite right now on my desktop. And I'm just going to say save. Now, let's say that we're going to call this, let me see what we call it here. People. Let's call the table people. Table people. We're then going to go and we have three fields, remember, the ID, first name, and a last name. So the first field is going to be an ID, and you can see here how it gets created. We say it's an integer, is a primary key, and is AI, which is auto increment. That's very important. We don't want to auto increment the ID ourselves. So then the next field is going to be first name, like this, and is a string. Let's say text, or don't they have string here? Okay, but we can't enter a string anyways. And then we're going to say it's not null, NN. All right, and the next field is going to be last name. And that one's also going to be a string and not null. So this kind of text that you can see here is how we're going to create our database. So it says create table people. We're also going to actually say if not, oh, I can't change this, but we're going to say if not exists, because whenever we run our application from scratch, we want to create the database if it doesn't exist, and we want to create this table if it doesn't exist. Otherwise, we just want to read from it. So this is like the basic of how you create. Oh, it's interesting how the format is working in here. So this is the basic of how we're going to create this database. So now that you know about that, we can actually go to the Flutter side and start working with our database and the connection to the database. And there is a really good plugin. I'm going to bring my browser here. So let's go to PubDev. And I'm going to go SQFLite. This is a really good plugin that allows you to work with SQLite databases with high-level functions. So it's very easy to use, as we will see soon. I will show you how to work with it just to create a simple CRUD application, so you don't have to worry about the details of that for now. Let's just go to the installing part and then grab this here. I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code to our terminal. If I can see it, I'm going to paste that. All right. Okay. That part is done. Also, for us to be able to create this database, we're going to do that actually in the documents folder of the application. As you know, in iOS and Android, when you're creating an application, each application has its own sandbox. So inside the sandbox, there are different directories that iOS and Android create by default, such as documents directory, library directory, and temp directory, etc. And for us to be able to create our database inside the documents directory, we actually have to have another package called a path provider. So let's go and see if we can find it. Here's a path provider. It's actually a plugin. It's not a package. Sorry about that. It's provided by Flutter Dev, and it's got 100% popularity, of course. Let's go to the installing and then grab that plugin and bring it here. Okay. Now, if you look at our, let's have a look if you can find it, PubSpec YAML. You can see that path providers here and SQFLite is also here. So we got those two things running. Let's go to our application to main Dart. If I can type it, maybe I can't. Here, what we need now is to be able to grab the path for our database. So I'm going to have a look at my notes a little bit here and see what I've called it in the actual application so we can actually follow along. So let's go in here. I'm just going to place a void test async, and I'm just going to call it from the build function. That's how I like to test stuff usually. So let's see if we can grab the path for the database. So I'm going to say directory is await. There is a good function called get application documents directory, and then we're going to say directory final db path or something like that, or just path we call it. I'm going to call it, let's say directory, okay, dot path, because this directory is, I think, is an object of called io.directory or something like that. Yeah, and directory I think is io directory, yeah. And we don't want to actually get the object, we want to get its path. So we are going to put this in curly brackets, and then also we're going to say this is slash db SQLite, like this. Okay, so I'm going to print this path, and let's run the application and see how that looks like. Also, hot reload is not going to work when you have added new plugins to your Flutter application, so you may actually have to stop this. And sometimes you can get stuck with actually even that not working, so I like to do Flutter clean, and then that's going to clean up everything, all the caches, and then I'm just going to say Flutter pub get. Okay, and then I'm going to say run without debugging. Let's see how that goes. Avoid print calls in production code. That's actually pretty good linter. That's telling us about that. Awesome. Okay, let's see how this goes. It's just a waiting game. Thankfully, with Flutter, we don't have to do this so often because we have hot reload. And SwiftUI also is almost there. Jetpack Compose, yeah. But if you're doing native development with just like native Android and native iOS, it can sometimes be very, very tiresome to wait for these commands. So here's the directory. You see it's in documents directory in the applications sandbox. You see application and the UUID of our application. In this case, this application, and then documents and then DB SQL. So let's keep this as it is. Now, what we're going to do is to start working with the creation of the database and also creation of the people table if it doesn't exist. So for this, I'm going to create actually a class. So let's call this person DB because the class is called person. I'm actually going to fold this. We don't need to see the entire thing. And I'm going to fold this and fold this so we can focus and fold our imports as well. So let's go and create a class here. I'm going to say person DB. Okay. The person DB, one of its absolute main components is that it has a stream controller. And I'm going to talk more about this as we go on, but just know that the person DB is going to expose some sort of a stream of person objects to its consumer, which is going to be the home page. And within this stream, it's going to just give you an array of persons. As you update, delete, add, and read, you're going to just work with the stream. So it's very difficult to explain it just right away. So let's just get started with creating a final string in here and say DB name. So we're actually going to ask the consumer of this class to pass a DB name to us. So, and I'm going to say create constructor for final fields. Okay. Then what we're going to do in here is to work with a database object. So a database object is defined, the database class itself is defined in SQFLite. So let's import that package as well. So I can tell you SQFLite here. So if you go in here, I think we should be able to find a database class. Boop, 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 boop. Can we find it? Open database here, future database. So this is an abstract class. So when we work with a database, we need to be able to hold on to a database object so that we can execute our queries on that. So let's immediately do that. So I'm going to say database, and it's an optional for now. And I'm just going to call it DB. All right. So by default, the database is nil until you call an open function on our class. So let's go and work with the open function. So I'm going to say this is a future of bool. This is how I like to do my futures usually. I know that futures can actually produce an error, but I really like to actually get the true or false in the future sometimes so that I know whether the operation went fine or not without having to do error handling on the consumption side. So future bool in this case, it means that it's either going to succeed or fail with true or false. Okay. So we're going to do error handling inside this future itself. And then I'm going to call this open. So this is going to open the database, and this is asynchronous. In here, then we're going to say if we already have a database, don't do anything. Let's just say true. Okay, but otherwise we are going to continue with the code. So in here, then I'm going to say grab that code from our homepage that created the database path, and let's remove the test function from here. Here, okay, final directory and a path. And then in here, we then say $DB name, which is available here, is passed to us. Then what we need to do is just let's do try and catch in here. And then let's see. And then we're just, in this case, we're just going to say print error is equal to $E and then return false. In the try, we're going to do something that is it may actually produce an error. So that's why we have to try and catch in here. The command that you need to know about when working with SQFLite is open database. So it's like this, open database, and there is a path for it. And in here we have the path, and you can see open database returns a future of database. So let's just say final db is equal to await. And then we're gonna save that db in self like this. Remember, this is our private instance of this db that we just retrieved from here. Now we're going to create the table, so I'm just going to put some comments here and say create table, and I'm going to say final create command is equal to, or just create is equal to, I like to use 3 single quotes like this, and then we can put the entire create statement in here like this. So we're going to kind of do the same command that you saw in the SQLite browser application with a little bit of a different format, but it's going to achieve the same thing. So I'm going to put it here. Now, the ID field was an integer, and it was primary key, and it was auto increment. Excuse me. And then we're going to have a first name field, and you can see now why Aero Lens can be a bit annoying in that it kind of like it makes the scene a little bit angry looking, even though there is no error. But looking at it, you will just get like, get out of my way. But if you can live with that, that's fine. Then just go ahead with Aero Lens. First name is going to be a string and not null, and we're going to have last name, if I can spell it, not null. All right, we have the command. Let's execute this command and then create a database. And then we can say, create a table. So we say db execute. And that's the SQL command, as you can see. Then we say create. What does this return actually? It's a future of await. So let's say await. After that is done, we actually want to read. So as soon as you open your database, you want to read the entire contents of it and then place it inside some sort of an array. So let's create an array in here. And I'm actually going to call it, I'm going to say, this is a list of person. Should we say people? Yeah, that could actually work. Maybe that's what I've done it. That's how I've done it before as well. Or let's say persons, like this. Okay. So let's now, we have the create command. We've executed. What does it say? Prefer const over final for the create. Okay, const. Now we've created the table if it doesn't exist. Now what we need to do is to create a function that returns all the instances of person classes within our database, within our table. So I'm going to go in here and create another function in here, and I'm going to say future list of person. What should we call it? What have I called it before? Fetch people, I think it's called here. I'm going to say fetch people, and we say this is async as well. The goal of this is to be called actually from the open function. So let's go in here and say read all existing person objects from the DB. Then we say final persons is equal to await fetch people. I'm using like persons and peoples interchangeably, so you have to excuse me. I just don't know which one to use really. I'm just going to say persons because this is called persons. And I'm going to then, as soon as we read those, we're going to place it inside our array. So I'm going to say persons, or what did we call? I think we said, let's see. I have to look at my notes a little bit. Okay. Right. So we need to then place these inside our persons object here. Let's make this private as well. So I'm then going to say, okay, persons is persons. And then I'm going to, now that we've done it, it's great. Now we've got a local copy of all the data that we've read from the database, although we haven't actually done the reading. We're going to take care of that soon. But you also now need to know, okay, now that we got this data, how are we going to give this data back to the home page? And that is why you need a stream controller. A stream controller is your gateway of having kind of like in RxSwift, you would call it a behavior subject. in that it can actually terminate, so it's not a behavior relay, but a stream controller is your gateway in containing a stream that is not only allowed for you to read from a consumption side, but it's also allowed for you to write to it. So it's not a read-only source of data, but it's also writes. So we're going to have to define a stream controller here. So let's say a stream controller of an array of, a list of person, because it's going to contain a list of person, and we're going to call it stream controller. And this is actually going to be a broadcast. Let's see if it allows us. Final stream controller, Why is it not happy about this? Because stream controller, I think, is defined in async. So let's import that. It's now imported here. As you can see, import Dart async, so you need to do that as well. I'm gonna fold this. So it's equal to broadcast. Okay, and we're going to do the broadcast stream controller, because if you don't do that, you will not be able to do hot reload in Flutter, because when you do hot reload, the build function of your home page is going to be recalled, and the stream is going to be subscribed to again. Like it's your stream builder is going to listen to the stream again, and you can't do that, because if you have one stream controller and you expose a stream method or a stream property to the outside world, and once it gets subscribed to, it can't get subscribed to again. And that's why you need to do a broadcast, so that between the hot reloads, the build function will get called, and then you will subscribe to the broadcasting of this stream controller again, and that's just going to be fine. So you're not going to run into problems in that case. So the whole point now is that now that we got the persons, what we need to do is to send that or add that to our controller. So I'm going to say stream controller add persons. Okay, and then return true. So we did actually the opening of the database. So the opening of the database, we did the reading, and then we added to the stream controller, and that was it really. So to be honest with you, we can get away. We don't even have to have this intermediate value here. I can just say persons like this, right? And then we get rid of that. Okay, let's have this print, even though it's saying that it shouldn't be used in production. So I'm going to fold the open function for now. Let's focus on the fetch people functionality here and see how we're going to write that. In the fetch people, we are going to say final db is equal to db, because what we want to make sure of is that the database has been created before we come here. And I'm going to say if db is null, then return false. Okay. Now from this point on, Dart is return an empty list. And Dart is intelligent enough to understand that since we've checked for null in here, then db from this point on is not going to be, I mean, even though it says in here, but we're going to be able to use it without a problem. So it's going to understand that it's not null anymore. So let's put a try and catch in here. And I'm going to say catch e. I'm going to say print error fetching people equal to $e. Return an empty list here. And what we're going to do then in the try statement is execute a query, which is a read query. So I'm going to say final read is equal to db and await db.query. And the query functionality is a little bit different from what we saw in the open functionality, in that in here we just execute a raw statement with execute. But in here, SQFLite has really good functionality that allows us to, you can see the query, it allows us to actually specify the table and what you actually want to grab from that table. So as you will see in here, I'm just going to say the table is, what did we call the table? Was it people? Yes, people. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say the table is people. Let's see what other parameters we have in here. There should be distinct objects, and then there is a parameter called columns. So in columns, what we're going to read is ID as string here, first name and last name. Okay, And then we're going to order everything by the ID column. That's our read functionality, and you can see it returns a list of a map of string and object. So it's a list of a dictionary that with keys of type string and with values of optional objects. So they may not have a value. Okay, oops. So let's go in here and somehow we need to create, we should get this people or the read operation, like this result needs to be transferred to a list of people or person class. So if we ask every person class to be able to initialize itself from a map of string object, then we can literally map this list to a list of persons. So let's go to person class here, and then we are going to create a function in here, and I'm going to say person from what should we call it, from database, something like that, maybe person from row, maybe, because that is actually a row, right? So I'm going to say person from row, and in here we're going to actually get a map of string and object like this, and I'm going to say row. In here we're going to just say ID is row ID as int, first name is row first name as string, and then last name is equal to row last name as string. Okay, so we got that now in place. We have the from row function, and that should be good to go. What we need to do, I'm going to fold the person class now, and in here we have to map this. I'm going to say final persons is, let me have a look if I call it persons here as well, just so we can follow along. People, so this is all over the place with people and persons and person, but that's okay. Then I'm going to say read, and then I'm going to say map. Let's say this is a row R, well, let's just call it row. Then I'm going to say person from row of row like this, and then we're going to convert it to a list, Now that we've done that, we can store it, return people, just like that. So you see, this was a simple fetch functionality, and then we have, yeah, this is great as it is then, because our you see there's two functions here. One is open, and then open actually does a read as well, which does a fetch. So this is the R part of our CRUD. So this is the only thing we've taken care of, opening the database and also reading its contents. As you have an open function, you also need to have a close function. So let's just go and say future void close, because we need to also close the database. So let's just say if db, I want to actually see if I created the close function as a future of bool or future of void. It's bool again, so let's say bool. In the close functionality, you need to make sure that there is a database. So we're going to say final db is db. We can actually grab it from the fetch here. Yeah, let's grab it from here, from the fetch people. In the close, I'm going to say return false, because there is no database to close, and then we're going to say db.close. I think so, but this is a future of void, so let's await on it, and then we're going to say return true. Okay, so now we have close as well. Great, this is working. I'm just going to do a hot restart here. Now that we have a person DB, we also need to ensure that we can return the list of persons that we fetched in here, right? So, and that is why we have the stream controller, but the stream control is private to this class. So we, from the consumer's perspective, they're not interested in a stream control, they're interested in a stream. So let's go and expose that. So let me go in here. Oops, not in that function. I'm I'm going to go in here. Let's go like this. I'm going to say is a stream of list of person class, right? And we're going to call it all. And all this does is a stream controller's stream like this. So this should actually do the trick for us. It's not more code than that. But one thing that we're missing here is how we're sorting these objects, because here we're just saying stream, and then in here when we fetch the objects we're not actually sorting them, and when we're adding them as well we're not sorting them. So somewhere we have to sort these objects, and it's not fair for the consumer to be able to sort these things. So let's go to our person DB, and in here in the stream let's map this value, which is a list of persons. I'm going to say persons, and let's just say persons sort like this. So this is going to return a sorted list of persons, which in turn is going to call the compare to function and is going to sort them in reversed chronological order. Okay, so now we got a simple person DB. What we need to do in our homepage is to create a stream builder, because we have a stream of persons and we need to just render them to the screen. So I'm going to bring up my notes a little bit just to make sure that I'm following along with what we've created before. So in here we also have to create our person DB, and I can see that this person DB has a open and close functionality, and for that we kind of need a stateful widget. So previously I said that we don't need it, but it seems like we do. Let's convert this to a stateful widget. So I'm going to say command dot and convert to a stateful widget. And in here, I'm going to say final CRUD storage is equal to, what's it called? Person DB with a capital B. And I think there was a parameter as well, right? DB name or something. DB name. Yeah, let's make this required. It's a required name parameter, and then in here we say DB name is DB SQLite. I'm kind of following a Django convention here for my database. Feels good. Now that we have the CRUD storage, we have to open it upon instantiating this, initializing this. Initializing this widget, and also we have to close it upon it being disposed of. So let's go to our init state. Let me see, what am I doing here? Let's go to init state, and then I'm gonna place dispose in here. In init state we can actually create it maybe as well. So let's say late final person DB and CRUD storage. In the init state we're gonna create it. CRUD storage is that, and then we're gonna say CRUD storage open, I think we call it. We don't have to await on it, because when it actually does open and reads all its data, then the stream is gonna get populated, so we don't have to await on it, and you can't even do that in init state anyways. So on dispose, then we're gonna say CRUD storage dot close, I think we call it, right? Okay, that's for the opening and closing of the database. I did a hot reload there. It's just because it's a habit. In the body, let's start with a stream builder, I think we call it, and its stream is going to be our CRUD storage dot stream. Didn't we expose that? Or we called it all, I think. Yeah, all, like this. And the stream builder also has an actual builder parameter, and in the building, when we're actually making the build, we have to make sure that we're listening to active and waiting snapshot states. What is happening here is that as you create a stream controller and then there's data being flown into it, then it can be in two states in which you can read its data, and those are active and waiting. But if it's in any other snapshot state, then you may want to display, for instance, a loading indicator. So let's go in here and say switch. Snapshot connection state, I think it's called. Connection state. I think it was with curlies. Missing case, yeah. And then we say case connection state active is going to do the same thing as connection state waiting. And in here, let's just say return text. Okay. Return const text. And then in any other case, which is default, then we're going to say, oh my God, what was that? Default. We're going to say return const center child circular progress indicator, just like that. Okay, do we have to do const on this as well? No. What did it say? Avoid const keyword. But if we avoid it here, then it's gonna... Okay. All right. Now you can see we got an OK here. So that means that we got some data. What you can also do in this case is just to make sure that there is data to be displayed. So you can say if connection state dot data if snapshot dot data is null, then we're going to return exactly the same thing, this loading indicator. Okay. Otherwise, we are going to create our list. So this is the exciting part. So let's grab the people. Let's say final people is equal to snapshot data as list of person. And I'm just going to, for now, print it, people. Okay. And I'm going to do a hot reload. Let's see if we got any data. We just got a circle loading there. Active waiting, data is null. Okay, let's print the snapshot here and see what is happening. Builder, okay. It says person null, 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 okay. And that could be because here when we call open, let's go into the open and see what is happening. Create table if not exists, okay. Stream controller add persons await fetch people. I'm going to just print we are here. And I can see that we're not actually getting there. So, oh yeah, we are here. And there's an empty array. Actually, it's working now. Yep. I'm going to just command S. And yeah, it's an empty array. Good. It's an empty array of persons. And that's kind of okay because we haven't added any objects to our database. So we got this far. Now let's create a list basically. So what I'm going to do here, let's start with Listviewbuilder because now, yeah, we probably need to actually start with Listviewbuilder. Okay, so I'm just going to say listview return listview dot oh god, I can't spell builder. Before this, I think there's a parameter called item count or something, and then this is equal to people count. And there's an item or length, or what's it called? Length. Yeah. And then the item builder. Let's get some help from Visual Studio Code like this. For the item builder, for now, I'm just going to say text. Can I do that? Hello. Const. All right, let's just say hello for now. Okay. Now it's a little bit strange right now because we've created the part of the application that reads all this data, but we don't actually have any data in the database. So what we could do is to start building this interface that we saw here, where you can provide a first name and a last name in like some sort of a compose field. So let's go, and I'm going to fold this whole home page and its state, everything. Let's go and create, I'm going to fold this as well. We don't need this. So it's a little bit cleaner. Let's do a compose view. All right. I'm going to call it a stateless widget. And is it a stateless widget? it's probably stateful widget because it has some controllers. So let's go and say STF for stateful, and we call it compose widget. Now this compose widget, it should have two text editing controllers to keep track of the first name and the last name, and there is a button here. So this is a column widget, so it has to have those two. Let's go and say late final, I would say. Oh my god. Late final. Text editing controller, first name controller. Okay. What did I do? Nothing. Okay. And then I'm going to say last name controller. So these are going to hold on to the first name and the last name. All right. I mean, this is not our application that we're developing, but I just brought it up so that we can have a look at how it looks like and what we're actually developing. So let's go into its init state and initialize those. So I'm going to say first name controller is equal to text editing controller, like that, and copy paste, and in here I'm just going to say last. And in dispose, let's dispose of our controllers. First name controller, dispose, and last name controller as well, dispose of it. All right, we got the text controller, like the text controller is in place. That's the boring part. Let's go in here and let's actually grab this compose widget and bring it in to, it's not hot reloading because we have to go to our application. Let's bring it into our home page. So let's go to the home page. It's stateful widget homepage state here, and let's change this list view builder to, we kind of need to have a column there. Let's see. Let's put this inside a column. Command dot on Mac or control dot on Windows, and then let's put it inside a column. As the first widget, we're just going to say a compose widget. Okay, const. And now if I command S to hot reload, I think we're actually get some rendering issues because this list cannot be placed inside another column. So we have to kind of like create this inside of an expanded. So wrap it with a widget of expanded. And I'm going to clean the errors, and then if I command S, then the error is going to disappear. And we have no items, so that's why we can't see the list. So now we have the compose widget. So all we have to do is just to actually go and create the logic for this. The main component or the main widget for this is going to be a column. So in this column, we're going to create two text fields. So text field, and the controller for the first one is going to be first name controller, and the next one is going to be a last name controller, and then there's going to be a button, as we saw. It's called add to list. So let's go create a button here, and we call it text button, and its child is a text that says add to list, and it's the child should be the last item also, you need to know. On pressed, we're going to get some callback here, and in here we probably have to just say const, and that is it. So now you can see some stuff happening in here. Let's put this into padding so it looks a little bit better. Okay, and then in here, as you saw, there was some hint that says enter first name, enter last name. So let's go and add these hints in here. So these are the controllers, and I think the hints, it's in some sort of a decoration, and then we say input decoration hint something, hint text. What is it? Is a string? Hint text is a string, yeah. So we say enter first name, okay, and then God, we have to say const as well. So position arguments const hint text. Oh, this should be a const. Sorry about that. So that's the decoration. And then we have to have another decoration also for the other one. That says enter last name. Let's grab this and put it here. Enter last name. Okay, we got to enter first name, enter last name in here, and then there's an add to list. Let's make this add to list a little bit bigger by adding a text style. We say text style, font size, let's say 30. Great. Oh, that's too big. 25 maybe, or 24. Add to list, a little bit better. Kind of looks like this one. Yeah, it's fine. These are a little bit smaller, I can see, but that's okay. Enter first name and last name. I don't think we have to adjust those. You get the idea. You can actually go and add those yourself. Now, upon the user pressing the add to list function, we at the moment have an empty function here, but we kind of want to pass this first name and last name to whoever created us. Okay, so let's define a type def in here. I'm going to say type def on compose is equal to a void function that takes in a string first name and a string last name. So this is just a callback definition. And in this compose widget, let's go and ask for this kind of a callback. It's kind of like a void callback, except it's not. It has parameters. So I'm going to go and say final on compose like this. And I'm going to add it in here. And I'm going to make it required, so it becomes the required named parameter. Required like this. All right, now let's go to compose widget and then say on compose, and then we get help from Visual Studio Code to complete this. I'm just going to say print first name, print last name, just like that. What's the error? Invalid constant value on compose. Avoid print calls in production on compose. But it doesn't have to be a constant though. Const compose widget. Do I have to remove that? Prefer declaration constant, immutable compose widget. What is it complaining about? Invalid constant. Oh, is it because? Yeah. Strange. Okay. That was strange because compose widget is a constant initializer here. So I don't know what that error was. But anyways, we're printing the first name and last name in here. And the goal here for us, when you press the add to list, we're going to say final first name is first name controller. And then we're going to say text. And then final, oh, is this optional by the way? No. Final last name is last name controller.text. And then I'm going to say on compose or widget on compose, and let's call first name, pass first name and last name in there. And then I think it would be really good if you actually cleared the text. That's one thing I didn't do in this original, because like if you say blah, 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 add to list, these things stay here. So let's clear those. So let's say first name controller.text is equal to empty. And then we say last name controller .text is equal to empty. Now that we get that in place, let's go to our application here. Let me save this. What happened? CRUD example class compose, try performing a hot restart. Okay. All right, it's in place. I'm going to say foo and bar. And you can see foo and bar is being printed here because of our print statement. So I think the compose widget is done. That's why I'm going to collapse it here. Or sorry, yeah, collapse it. It's not expanding, collapsing it. Now we got a first name and last name. What we have to do now is just to go to our database and add this as a person. So what we need, I'm going to fold this. Let's go to our person DB and say a new feature in here that says future create. And then we'll say, give us a string first name and a string of last name. Okay. And this is going to be future bool, whether it's going to succeed or not. I think that's what we've done in the actual where I wrote this function in the beginning. Yes, and that it is, that's the case. And we have to do the same thing as we did here. We grab the database if it's present. In this case, we return false. And we say try, catch, and then we say print error in creating a person is equal to $E, return false. In the try state, in the try statement, we're going to create the object. And the creation is one of my favorite ways. Actually, SQFLite allows us to create objects using high order functions. And it's really cool in that you can say DB in this case. And we say, let's see, insert. And in here, you provide your table. And I think the table was people. Yeah. It would be good if you could actually write this table name as a const, but I haven't done that yet, but you could do. It would be better actually if you did that. And in here, you provide your values just directly like this. So since ID is auto increment, do you remember when we did the open function here, we said that the primary key, the ID is primary key and auto increment, so we don't have to provide the ID for it. And the cool thing is that if you read the documentation for insert, it actually says that, let's see if the documentation says insert, what it returns. The ID of the last inserted row. So that is perfect because once we get the ID, so we say final ID, then we can create an actual person object. So because at the moment we just have a first name and last name, we don't have the ID, and we're not gonna, it's not cool to go and do a query because you can't go and query the database after a first name and last name to get its ID because there may be multiple objects with the same first name and last name. So it's not gonna work. That is why you get the ID back. So in here, we're gonna say first name is first name and last name is last name like this. That is the ID, and we have to await on this because this is asynchronous. Then we say final. Let's create, since we have the ID and first name and last name, let's create the actual person. We say person is a person like this. I think name parameters, ID, first name is first name, last name is last name. I like to place a comma at the end so that it breaks it down for me in multiple lines. Now that we have the person, we have to do two things. Insert it into the array of persons like this. So we say persons, add person. And then we also have to then give this persons to our stream controller. So we say controller, stream controller dot add persons. Now this is going to be sent down the stream. So it's really cool. You will see it soon. And also we return true at the end. Okay, so now I'm gonna go unfold this feature, and then when you, in our home page, when you compose a new message in here, instead of saying, let's see, no, here, on compose here, then we're gonna go to our, let's say, await CRUD storage, or what did we call it? CRUD storage, yeah. CRUD storage dot insert, or do we call it add? Create for the CRUD, yeah, create. First and last name, that's it, and then wait on it. Oh, and this should be async, of course, because we're waiting on something. So if I refresh, I'm just gonna do a hot restart just in case. And for the first name, I'm gonna say foo and then bar, and then add to list. And you can see the text fields got cleared, and then there's a hello here, and that is because we're not actually creating tiles. So let's go and create tiles for this object, and then we're going to say return tile. Let me just make sure that I have the actual original code. List tile. Now for the list tile, I think we need to do a title and subtitle. So I'm going to say title. The title is a what? A widget. So I'm going to say text. And we have the actual, oh, I see we have people here, but we don't have the person. So let's say final person is equal to people at that index, and at that we say person first name. And then for the subtitle, I'm going to say it's a text that is equal to the person's last name. Okay, let's see. Oh, is it not subtitle? It is subtitle all lowercase. If I can spell. Yeah, and then this should be semicolon at the end. You see, here's foo bar printed here. But if you looked at the original example, my God, what did I do? if you look at the original example, the title was the full name. So let's go to person and extend it. So we say string get full name is equal to is a getter, and is equal to dollar first name and dollar last name. Okay, and then we can fold this as well. Then we go here, and then instead of text title first name, we say text person full name. And for the subtitle, it will be equal to ID. You see, we say ID, and then we actually print the person's person ID like this. So if I go back to our application and do a hot reload, there we go. All right, I'm not going to do the styling exactly as we did here because that's going to take also a long time. But you can do the styling later if you want to, but we're just going to get the data at the moment. Okay, so that's that. Now we've taken care of creating the tiles for each person. I'm going to say Baz. I'm going to say Baz and then Baz last name. Add to list, and you can see Baz last name or last name. Anyways, now if I tap on this person, I want to have this X button as we saw in here for me to be able to close, like delete this user. So let's go and take care of that. And in order to do that, we have to take care of like a little accessory here, which is called trailing. So let's go to the list tile, and I'm going to say trailing. And the trailing is going to be a text button, and the child is going to be a text. I'm sorry about that. Just one second. The child is going to be a text, and then the text is actually going to have a text button. Child is going to be, I think, an icon in this case. Icon, if I can spell it, and then it's going to be icon data dot. Let's see, what am I using? I can actually grab that code and bring it here so that we don't have to write it again. So here's that icon, text button name parameter unpressed. Okay, and then let's put the unpressed like this. Now you can see that we got that X button here. Prefer const. Okay, const. Great here as well. Perfect. Now we got the unpressed in here. As you press this, we want to show a dialog that looks like this. Boom. Are you sure you want to delete this item? Yes or no? And this is just going to be a dialog of true or false. So let's go and develop it. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say future of bool show delete dialog async, or no, not async. And I'm going to say return show dialog, and then the context. Well, let's get a build context in here. Build, or just call it context. That's the context, and there's a builder. Let's call the builder in here like this, and in here I'm going to say return alert dialog. There's actions, content, and in here for the content we're just going to say text. Are you sure you want to delete this item? And you can see now when we have Aero Lens, then it's going to get really, like, I don't even know what the problem is at this point. Prefer const. Okay, const, there's so much information. Prefer const for the alert dialog as well. Okay, avoid const. Okay, prefer const, avoid const. A value of type future dynamic. Okay, and then we have to map this. Then, and then we get the value, and we say if value is bool, return value, else return false. Okay, this is going to take care of that last bit. And for the actions, we have a no and a delete. So let's go actions like this, and I'm going to say text button. What does it say? No, child is text, and I'm going to say no here. My God, unpressed is also required. Okay, let's create an empty unpressed here, like this. Invalid const. Oh my God, because this is not const. So let's remove the const there. Prefer const. Jesus Christ. There's so much const stuff everywhere. Const, I don't even know where I should put the const, to be honest with you. Actions, invalid const value. All right. So if I remove the unpressed here, then it says it's required. Then I'm going to add the unpressed, and it says invalid const value because of what exactly? Let me remove this const and let that be as it is. Yeah, let this, and this one is a const. My God, there are so many lints. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Okay, let's go, and then there's a delete. Let's add the delete as well. Text button like this, I'm gonna put here, and then I'm gonna say child is delete. God, okay, in here, now we have to do navigator of context, and then we pop, not poop, pop, with true, because we want to delete, and in here we say false. That's it. I mean, now we got the dialog. Now I'm gonna switch back to our application, and upon pressing this button, I'm gonna say this is now an async function, and I'm gonna say final should delete is equal to show delete dialog with that context. If should delete, then we have to call make the deletion here. Wait. Now, this is when we have to make the deletion. Let me just press this button and see if this dialog works. Are you sure you want to delete this item? No. Okay. Let me put a print in here. Print should delete. You will see now, you will get true or false depending on whether the user says no or delete. Delete. Let's show the dialog again. Delete is, oh, delete is false? No. We did it the exact opposite. This one, which says no, should be false. Sorry about that. This one should be true. So now if I press this and I say delete, then it should be true. Okay. Now that we worked on that, let's go to our, let me fold this. Let's go to our person DB and create the delete function. Okay. So in here, we're going to say we have a new future. Fold this as well. Let's say, oops. Let me fold this, sorry about that. Fold a little bit cleaner. So this is C in CRUD. C in CRUD. And then we say D then. Future of bool delete. In this case, we don't want to delete with first name and last name. We don't want to really delete with an ID because we don't want to expose how exactly this database is working. So we just say delete a person. So we say person, and async. All right. So when it comes to the deletion, I'm just going to grab my notes. Sorry about that. Let's go and let's do the same thing as we did in, we just want to make sure that there is a database setup. Like this. Okay, then we say try, catch E, print deletion failed with error $E, and return false. And in here, then we are gonna say that we want to delete something. So we say final delete count is await db.delete from a table that is called people. And then there is a where clause. Then we say ID is equal to something, and then where args. And in here you say person ID. So this is how you do deletion with SQFLite, in that you pass your table name and then a where clause, and then do the formatting in here. So try not to do your formatting in here, because then it could actually be broken and susceptible to SQL injection. So pass like your formatting in here, and then your arguments like I'm doing in here. So then we say if we're deleting something by an ID, then we're expecting the deleted count to be exactly 1, because you can see this says passing null will delete, returns the number of rows affected. So we want to make sure there is only 1 row affected. We say if deleted count is equal to 1, then we have to remove this object also from our persons array. We say remove person, and then we say stream controller add persons and return true. Otherwise, we say else return false. Now that we have this delete functionality, let me just fold this. Let's go to our home page state. Upon deletion here, where we added a to-do, we have to make this, yeah, it is async actually, I can see here. Let's make the deletion call. We say if should delete, then we say CRUD storage, delete person, and we await on it. Okay, so let's delete Baz last name. And there we go, that's working as well. And we can delete this one as well. And we say foo bar, boom. All right, one thing I noticed is that also this is something you may want to fix. As we add an item to the list, I can see that this focus is still on this text field. You may want to refocus on this text field, but I leave that to you. Now, I think we've taken the C and the D. So it's create and delete. Oh, also we've taken off read. We've taken care of the read. So we've done everything. So we've done CRD. It's the U that's remaining, right? It's the update. And if you look at this application that we did here, if you tap on it, you can update it. And we should create this dialog now. So let me fold this so it's not in the way. Let's go and next to this dialog, show delete dialog, do a future of what does it have to return? It has to return a string, and it has to return, sorry, it's the first name and last name. And for that, to be honest with you, we kind of have, we already have on compose. So I wanna kind of see how we've done it in the, how I've done it in my notes. Yes. So this actually returns a person. So let's take care of that. So if you save, you give it a person, basically, you give this function a person. And if you save, it gives you that person back with the updated first name and last name, and the ID is going to stay the same. So, and if you say cancel, then this is going to return a nil to you. So let's say show update dialog, and then we get a build context, and then we say context, and we say person. So we want to update this person, okay? Then, sorry, context. And in here, we kind of want to say return show dialog. And we say in here, show dialog, builder. Is that how we did it in here as well? Show dialog, builder, yeah. And we say context is context, and the builder, let's get some help from Visual Studio Code. The builder looks like this. Return alert dialog. And let's get the content in there. The content is a text, and it says, enter your updated values here. Okay, and then in here, we have to also say then value. If value is person, return the value. Else return null. Okay, now we have the content. We also have to get the actions. No, actually the content, I can see here the content is a column. So there's a text and then two text fields. So let's create two text field like controllers. So let's say, what do we call them? Text editing controller, first name controller. I'm gonna do it like this, final is equal to this. And then final last name controller is text editing controller like this. And then I'm gonna go in here and then say alert dialog. For the content, I'm gonna wrap this into a column. And then we need also two text fields. So I'm gonna say text field. Do they have any default value? Yeah, their default value is actually the person's first name and last name. So in here, we have to say first name controller, text is person first name, and then last name controller, text is person's last name. Okay, now that we've done that, then we go and create a text field, and we say controller is first name controller, And we create another text field here as well, which is the last name. So text field, and then we say last name. Sorry about that. Last name controller. Now we also need 2 actions in there. Let's go and create our actions. This is in the column. This is not where we're going to create the actions. We're going to create the actions in the alert dialog. So let's say actions. And there are 2 buttons: cancel, text button, unpressed. And then there's a child, and the child says text cancel. And then there is another one, text button, that says save. Okay, const, if that makes you happy. And in here, we just say final edited person is equal to a person. This is cancel. So we say navigator off context. You can't see what I'm typing. And then we pop with a null value in here because, yeah, that's what we said in our contract here. That's for cancel. But if you save, then we say here's edited person is equal to ID is person ID, but first name is first name controller dot text, and last name is last name controller dot text, right? That's the edited person, and then we're gonna pop the navigator with this. So I'm just gonna say navigator of context pop with the edited TED person. Okay, so we got that working. Hot reload isn't working because I'm not in our app. I'm gonna go back to the app. So now hot reload is working. Let's go and show this update dialog when you tap on the tile. And that's in the homepage state. Let's see where we're creating the tile, and then let's say on tap. How does it look like? It looks like this. Oops. Let's create this, and then I'm going to say this is an async function, and I'm going to say final edited person is equal to show edit display or show. It was show edit, right? Show update dialog. Sorry about that. And the context on a person, and then we say if edited person is not null, then in here we actually have to go to our database and say update that person. So let's go to the database and say we have a future here that says future bool, and then we say update person. How do we do it? We say update a person, original person updated, like this. So we take the original person and update it with that. Okay. So, and I think that's, if I look at my notes, I think that's how how I've done it before as well. I'm sorry about that. There's a quick look here in my notes just to make sure that's how we've done it in the other place as well. No, I see that we're taking a person. So what we're doing in here, it seems like that we're taking the ID of this person and updating that person's first name and last name. So ID never gets updated. So let's do that. Let's go to this delete and grab the header. We need a database. So let's make sure that a database is there, like this. Then we say try, and then we say catch E, print failed to update person, error is equal to E. And then we return false in here. For the update, we have to tell the database to do this. We say db.update, and that also takes the table. We say people, and the values are going to be first name is going to be the person first name, and then last name is equal to person last name. So that's for the update. Also, the update is very similar to the other formats in that we have a where clause. So we say ID should be equal to this person's ID. So we say where args equal to person, an array of person or a list of values. Okay, that's the update. The return of it is a future of int. And what does it say? Does it say is a number of what does it say? Returns the number of changes made. Number of changes made. I think it's the number of rows that were affected by this update. So let's say final update count is equal to await, and then we say if update count is equal to 1, let's now update our local storage. Then in this case we say persons remove where person other. Then we say other ID is equal to this person ID. So this is the removal of that person from our local storage. Not even storage really, it's just like a local array that we have. Then we say stream controller, after the update we actually have to insert the new one. So we say persons add, and when we say persons add, then we have to insert this new person, right? I think so. And then we say stream controller, add persons, and then we return true. Good. Now that we have the update also in place, I'm gonna fold this. Let's go in here, and in there, edited person, we just say await CRUD storage dot update person, or let's just say edited. That's it. So the argument type future await if async. What is it complaining about? The argument future blah blah edited person. Oh, we didn't await on this. Sorry about that. Now this should be good to go. Now let me tap on foobar and just say, oh, this is because this column. Let's go where we're displaying the show update dialog. We have a column. This should have a main axis size. Main axis size. I think there's a min in here. And let's do this. Let me just do a refresh here then. I kind of probably need to look a little bit in my notes, but that should really work. What does it say? Restart application. Non-null value must be returned since the return type bool doesn't allow null in the update function. So let's go into the update and see where I've messed up. That's return, and in here we say return false. Sorry about that as well. All over the place right now. I'll do a hot restart here. And let's go and tap on foobar, and that's worked actually. So I'm just gonna say foobar and say press save. And that's it really. That's the conclusion of this video, because if you look at our person database, this is a C in CRUD. This is the D for our CRUD operation. And then we have close open. Open is kind of like, this fetch is our R. So C, I'm going to bring him in kind of like an order so we can actually, oh my Jesus Christ, what happened here? Let me grab it like this. So CR and R and then update we have as well, which is the U in CRUD. So I'm going to bring it up here like this. CR. I mean, this is not important. You don't have to do this. I just want to do it for the sake of the code looking a little bit prettier. And then we say this is U. So U, like this. CRU. Where did the delete go? Did I delete the delete? That can't be true. Yeah, I think I may have deleted it, but you know what? I'm not gonna play with it. It can be like this. You get the idea. CRU and then the D. So you can play with this. You can delete items as you want, and you can see you can insert values in here without a problem. Delete, update. So I would say that this is working as expected. So I will place the code for this because this is quite a lot of code. I think we coded about 447 lines of code. There's a lot of stuff happening in here, and I hope that you got some information from it. At least you learned something from it. And if you have any questions, do let me know. I'll be more than glad to help you. So that's it for this video. Thank you.